They sold it as a dream. Young Dutch students and refugees living side by side, building bridges, learning from each other, creating the multicultural future European progressives promised would work if we all just believed hard enough. Instead, it became a 6-year nightmare of sexual assault, knife attacks, gang rape allegations, and authorities who looked the other way while students begged for help. This isn't a horror movie. This is Stek Oost, a real housing complex in Amsterdam. And what happened there reveals precisely why liberal, progressive fantasies are collapsing everywhere. In 2018, the Dutch government and housing association Stagenoot launched an experiment that sounded beautiful on paper. Take 125 Dutch students desperate for affordable housing during a brutal shortage, house them with 125 refugees, mostly young men from Syria and Eritrea. Create a buddy system where students would help migrants integrate into Dutch society. And the pitch, of course, was classic multiculturalism. Coexistence accelerates integration. Proximity builds understanding. If we just live together, cultural difference just melts away. The Watergraafsmeer district in Amsterdam got a brand new circular building made from repurposed modules, sustainable, modern, progressive in every way. Students committed 1 hour per week to community service. Facilitators from the Academy voor de Stad guided the integration process. This was the future progressives envisioned. There was just one small problem. Reality had other plans. According to a report by the Daily Mail, within months of opening, students started reporting violence. Fights erupted in the hallways. Confrontations spilled into shared living rooms. One male student described being threatened with an 8-inch kitchen knife by a refugee. Another said the violence was constant. There was literally no escape from it. But it was the sexual assault that was far worse and far more shocking. A woman identified only as Amanda told Dutch investigators that a Syrian refugee repeatedly asked her to visit his room to watch a film. He said he wanted to learn Dutch, to get educated. She wanted to help him, and unfortunately that generosity nearly destroyed her life. Once inside his room, he trapped her, and he refused to let her leave and then sexually abused her. Amanda reported the attack to police immediately. This was back in 2019. The case was dropped. Authorities said there was, quote, lack of evidence. But here's where the story gets even darker. 6 months after Amanda's report was dismissed, another woman living at Stek Oost warned the housing association that she feared for her own safety and the safety of other women in the building. She specifically named the same Syrian man who purportedly attacked Amanda. The response from local authorities? Same thing. They claimed it was legally impossible to evict him. A man credibly accused of rape, another woman warning he's dangerous, and Dutch authorities, the same ones who forced students into this integration experiment, said their hands were tied by legal barriers. In fact, Dutch officials were reported as saying that while some unacceptable behavior was indeed witnessed by many of the students, that was certainly corroborated. Legally, it wasn't enough to remove someone from their home or impose mandatory care. Translation, we care more about protecting the rights of migrants, even ones accused of rape, than protecting the safety of Dutch students we placed in harm's way. Now, that Syrian man finally left Stek Oost in March of 2022, 3 years after Amanda reported him, but only because he was formally arrested. In 2024, he was convicted of raping Amanda and another resident. His sentence, 3 years in prison. I kid you not. 3 years for 2 rapes. This wasn't an isolated incident. Police confirmed they received no less than 7 reports of sexual assault connected to Stek Oost. In 2022, Dutch authorities reported that another refugee had been accused of 6 sexual attacks between 2018 and 2021, leading to a prolonged legal battle over his removal. And again, it gets even worse. In 2023, students reported a gang rape during the summer. They claimed that they had filed numerous reports, but they were all either ignored or downplayed. Again, the message was clear. Your safety matters less than the optics of this liberal, progressive integration project. By 2023, even Nostalgia Note, the organization running the complex, they wanted out. They tried to shut Stekost down, citing overwhelming safety concerns. The local authorities refused. They wouldn't let them. Staff couldn't sleep, students lived in terror, and authorities kept the experiment running, obviously for ideological reasons. But police reports kept getting filed until finally authorities agreed to close Stekost, but not until 2028 when the contract expires. That means, I kid you not, students are still living there right now, 6 years into a failed social experiment that prioritized progressive narratives over the basic safety of native Europeans. I wish I could say this was a one-off, that this was a unique instance of ideological blinding of authorities to rampant abuse. But it's not. It appears to be part of a growing pattern inside liberal institutions in Europe. And the case I'm about to share with you is the most shocking of them all. But first, gang, did you know that after 40, your bone marrow slows stem cell production? Did you know that? These are the repair cells that rebuild muscle and fix blood vessels and help you heal. But by the age of 50, your natural production, it can drop up to 75%. That's why healing slows, recovery feels harder, and aging hits all at once. Did you know that cocoa flavanols flips the signal back on? This powder that I take every single day acts like an alarm clock for your bone marrow, triggering the release of repair cells again. Don't take my word for it. Here's Harvard scientist Dr. William Lee.
If you actually give people who have coronary artery disease, so they've got narrowing of their blood vessels and stiff, hard blood vessels, if you measure their stem cells and then see how many stem cells are floating around their blood, which is not many, then researchers have given them 2 cups of dark chocolate in the form of hot chocolate. That's it, 2 cups to have a day for 30 days. And at the end of 30 days, you take out your blood and measure the stem cells again, and then do that flow media dilation resiliency test again of the blood vessels to see, have they changed? This is what's amazing that's been found. That dark chocolate, the proanthocyanidins, not only got into the bloodstream, but they doubled the number of stem cells circulating in your blood vessels, and they doubled the resiliency of your blood vessels just over the course of a month with as little as 2 cups of hot chocolate that's dark.
That's right, dark chocolate. But unfortunately, processing destroys flavanols, the part that actually works. So that's why I use Black Forest high flavanol cocoa. It is 1,200 milligrams of pharmaceutical-grade flavanols extracted from elite cocoa to trigger stem cell release from your bone marrow, like bees from a hive. These repair cells help rebuild muscle, blood vessels, even brain tissue. Black Forest just opened a limited New Year access window, the biggest discount of the year, but it closes in 48 hours. After that, prices reset and supply tightens. If you've been on the fence, this is the moment. Click on that link below right now. Try it out today. Your body will thank you. Several months back, Elon Musk exposed what many have called the scandal of the century in the UK. He ripped off the cloak of deceit of one of Britain's most disgusting scandals in their entire history. It's being called the grooming gang or rape gang scandal, and it's rocked the UK government like never before. The story originally broke back in 2011. Journalist Andrew Norfolk reported on girls as young as 12 having abortions as a result of abuse, while one girl, aged 13, appeared to have been raped more than 50 times. He noted that in 17 trials held between 1997 to his time, that was back in 2011, across 13 towns, 50 of the 56 offenders were Pakistani Muslim. And then another report came out in 2014, this by British professor Alexis Jay, and it found that in a single northern town in England, at least 1,400 children were sexually exploited. 1,400 in a single town. Again, the report found that the vast majority of the perpetrators were Pakistani Muslim. And another report, this involving the town of Telford near Birmingham, a town of 140,000 residents, some 1,000 young girls were systematically raped and sexually abused by gangs of men over a number of years. And that number of 1,000 is most likely, according to the report, tame as compared to the actual number. The perpetrators were mostly Pakistani men. The victims were overwhelmingly poor, white, and English, and they were as young as 11 and 12 years old. And how did Britain's political class, an elite liberal aristocracy among all political parties, both Labour as well as Tories, how did they respond to all of this? As policy analyst Laura Brown has meticulously documented, the victims weren't just ignored. In some cases, they were actually blamed. She gives one example of how a 13-year-old victim was blamed by authorities for, quote, placing herself at the risk of sexual exploitation and danger. Another indictment involved a 12-year-old girl found drunk in a derelict house with several sexual predators. I will repeat that, she was the one arrested for being drunk and disorderly, while none of the groomers were arrested. And we could go on and on and on. School teachers deliberately turning blind eyes to children exemplifying evidence of sexual abuse. And then, of course, the unison chorus of woke-splainers accusing anyone and everyone who raised so much as a whit of concern about all this as racist Islamophobes. Unfortunately for these smug, witless liberals, their days of being able to cover all of this up are over. A mass backlash is forming all across Europe in the guise of what's known as civilizational populism. For an increasing number of Europeans, they believe that their unique civilization is being threatened by a foreign invasion who are being allowed into their countries by corrupt globalist elites for their own political power and affluence. For example, open borders allows for the mass importation of cheap labor, which maximizes corporate profits, a significant portion of which then go to pay off greedy politicians who promise to keep those borders open. And when there's a mass outcry against this, when the people of a nation rise up and demand that their borders be closed and their sovereignty defended, they're branded as far-right racist xenophobes. But the problem here is that those taunts, that obviously dishonest character, is only further fueling the rise of more civilizational populism. So the result is this massive backlash all throughout the West, particularly in Europe, where populations are rising up and demanding their borders be secured and their national sovereignty and cultures defended. They've had enough of liberal ideology overriding reality. When integration becomes more important than protecting citizens, then integration be damned. Europeans are increasingly protecting their own. A new civilizationalist Europe is poised to take over the continent. And as far as these dear young girls are concerned, that can't happen soon enough. Hey gang, before you go, if you want more conversations like this, check out Turley Walks. It's my free preview at the Courageous Patriot Club, where I share stories and perspective on faith, family, and freedom. Head on over to turley.pub/turleywalks. It's completely free.